Welcome everybody to another insightful True Business Stories podcast. I'm Bill Winter and I'm here today with my fellow podcaster Mark Edmonds. Now, Mark, what have you been up to in this week since we last did our podcast?
Well, I've been looking at the amount of podcasts we've done. I think we've ticked over 30 podcasts, Bill. I think...
and we're nudging nearly 1,000 downloads.
Something like that. So given that we just started this on a whim of an idea, I'm pretty impressed. And we're obviously getting some good interest from people that want to hear from some good business stories. So apart from that, I've just been whizzing around, just wrapping up some of the mentoring that I've been doing because that program finishes the end of November. And been for an interview for a non-executive director's role, which will be interesting to see if that pans out. So
great to hear that. But more importantly, why are we here today? We're here today because we're delighted to be able to talk to Gillian Costa. Gillian has vast experience along with her husband Darren in the hospitality industry. So welcome, Gillian.
Thank you, Bill. Mark.
That's okay.
Good. So it's, and I know that you have other interests around the Geelong region, and that you were recently on the Geelong Business Awards with me as a fellow judge. So that's, I guess, one of the reasons why we got together today.
So, Gillian, where did the story start? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? What was your starting point?
Yeah, I would have to suggest that I'm about as authentic Geelong as you could get. I grew up, I was born at what was at the time Holy Cross Hospital. It's now St John of God. And we grew up almost on the corner of McKillop and Morrible Street. There's a little car yard there and we were the house next door to that. And Dad's shop at that time, the fruit shop, was about 2-3 blocks down Morrible Street. And that was my world. From the fruit shop to home, we had Carew's dry cleaning across the road, which is now, I think, Winter Garden Gallery or what's there. So that was pretty much where we lived. That was the realm of where we grew up. And then from there, I think Mum and Dad had 6 children in that little, it was 3-bedroom because they added a room on. So let's call it a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. And then they went to Newtown to Retreat Road where we were at the top of the hill from Sacred Heart. And that made it a much easier walk because I used to walk from McKillop Street into Sacred Heart where I attended from kinder. At that stage, they had kinder right through to what was Form 6 then, Year 12. So, yeah, I was a Sacred Heart girl from start to finish and, yeah, lived in that area for pretty much the whole time. So, yeah, very Geelong Central.
Oh, that's interesting, Gillian, because when I was a little tacker a long time ago, my father had a company called Noddy Soft Drinks and we were at 226 Mallop Street and we lived in the house next door. Right, but he sent my 3 elder sisters off to boarding school. But I know what it's like when you, in a family business like that, you're living very close to the business. Your whole life is around business.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say Noddies, and that's when I say, and it's up there on that screen. When I say authentic Geelong, Dad's business moved to Gordon Avenue, where I worked from about the age of 14. I was in there, and we had Noddy soft drink next to us on the same site. So, yeah, when you've grown up here forever, there's stuff you don't even think about that is just second nature.
It's an interesting branding situation because the residual value of some of those brands in a big regional town like Geelong have lasted forever. The businesses haven't, but the brands have.
So, Gillian, did you go to uni? Did you?
No. I actually, what I really wanted to do was be a jockey. And then I kept growing and kept eating and thought, well, that's not going to work. So then I thought I'd just work with horses, but always worked really. So as I said, we were working from about, Gordon Avenue at 12, but pretty much at 14, but from about 12 on, we had part-time jobs, all us girls, and we worked, and I just kept working. So for me, it was sort of the school of hard knocks, as they call it, and just lived experience. I did a little bit with Gordon, and there was Bay City, I've forgotten the TAFE, I think Bay City Jude was in charge of it. I met her a few years ago after, 20 or 30 years we saw each other again. But, so I've done a bit of that sort of, diploma type stuff, but I didn't do university. That wasn't going to work for me.
And not everyone needs to go to university.
No. And I haven't bred university children either. We're just not a uni family.
No, it's not a problem. And so what got you into hospitality? So if you were working, obviously, in your dad's business.
Yeah.
And then when did you decide I need to start my own, or what?
Yeah, well, all good decisions are made on a whim and a prayer. My husband was working at LeisureLink, and he was one of the shift managers there, and working with another guy who, again, is like, I'll keep talking about old Geelong. This guy's father used to have a bakery in Belmont that used to supply us at the fruit shop, so I sort of knew of them very well. And for reasons I can't tell you, he and my husband decided a pizza shop would be a good idea. He claimed that he'd done pizzas in the bakery, that he knew how to do them. We were very upfront that we didn't, but we were prepared to learn. It was right when Pyramid collapsed, and we got the Geelong Building Society in Highton on the corner there as you go into Bellevue Avenue, and we took a lease on that, and we had to actually clean it out from the bank. I think I've still got some stationery at home in my desk drawer, which is probably tragic. It says a lot about me, but I think I could still find you a couple of sheets if I'd looked hard enough. So we went in there and made a pizza shop, not having ever run one before. So we thought we'd have an office. The kitchen was tiny, so we quickly had to forgo the office and extend the kitchen. The night we opened, knowing that we didn't really know what we were doing, we didn't advertise an opening. We just put a banner up out the front saying now open. We did have some pizza cooks come in, thank goodness. We had one little oven. We were slammed that night. It was like talk about a baptism of fire. It was wall-to-wall people, which was great that they come in to support us, but we just didn't have a system in place and we couldn't cope. So by week 2, we had 2 ovens and we had a system going and we flew from then on. So other than the first night that was, I can only say it was horrific. We got through it. We gave away a lot of pizzas and so forth. But other than that first weekend, we took off and it was a great little shop, and that was probably our first foray.
That's fantastic. And Bill and I often talk about what we call tipping points. I call it sliding door moments, where something happens and you go in a totally different direction. And that sounds like yours. Working in the fruit and veg business, suddenly let's do a pizza shop and off you go.
Yeah, well, the timing for us, I was still working with Costa's produce at that time, but I was pregnant with my second child when they started this. So I was at home, I wasn't working full-time, and I was actually one of the pioneers of work from home. I was actually working from home at that time with them. So I was able to support them doing the pizza shop only because my in-laws were supporting me, and they were at home at nights looking, sitting with the kids while I was able to go in and work with the boys. But it was, I guess not so much a tipping point, but probably a sliding door that the stars aligned. The boys wanted to do it. I was able to support them. We just got in there, and it's one of those things where you just have to make it work. You don't have a choice. You just have to make.
So, Gillian, you've now the owner-operator of the Pier.
Yes.
In a beautiful location down the front of Geelong on the waterfront. How many different businesses there?
There's 3 different businesses there. I mean, we're the one overarching operation, but they do run quite differently. We've got the YYG restaurant downstairs. Upstairs is the Wah Bar, which is very casual dining, sort of all afternoon grazing, looking out over the water. And then out the back, of course, is the function centre, which does events, parties, conference, whatever.
So how did you get from a pizza shop to the Pier?
Oh, gee, there's been a lot of water under that bridge. To get from the pizza shop to the Pier, I've had 4 children, sold leather lounge suites, set up a flower pack house, wholesale flower pack house for Coles Victoria, done in-ground pools and spas, like installing them and maintaining them with the retail shop, and done the rowing boats. And then I got to the Pier. So, you draw what you will of that. I don't think there's any sensible link there, but essentially pretty much since I was very early 20s, it's always been operations, and I kind of maintain the product, whatever, it's a different way you set up the operation, but essentially systems, integrity, whatever, they're the same. So you've got to get your basic business principles down pat, and then you can apply it to whatever you're doing.
Did you have a vision for the pier when you started? Did you know where you wanted to go with it? And because you've updated it and changed things a few times.
We have. Initially it was Smorgies, and we knew that's not where we wanted to be. Whilst that model worked, we didn't feel it was fitting for that location. So we wanted it to be something that Geelong could really celebrate Geelong in. And it's a great vista of Geelong, and it's a really feel-good place. It gives its own, I guess, ambience to events. It sort of sets a tone for a quality event just because you're in a special location. So that was our objective, if you like, was really just for people to really enjoy it. I mean, and I think that's what, whenever someone sets up a business, they want their product to be enjoyed, but we wanted it just to be a great place for Geelong people and visitors to party in, basically. And the initial setup was too formal. The restaurant there is too big for the fine dining that they initially went for. So we sort of brought that back to reach more the everyday market, which is where it sits now, which is much better for us.
And do you do weddings and things?
We do a lot of weddings and things. You could almost say it's that hatch, match, dispatch type place and everything in between. We have some great christening parties go on there. We do a lot of really good weddings, and then we have some fantastic life celebrations where dolphins just seem to dance for us on cue. I don't know. We've often talked about a mechanical one, but it's amazing how often they appear at just really timely moments. So it's, yeah. But we've had little mini cars in the pier, and we've had circus acts, and it's like it just takes to whatever it needs to be at the time. So yeah, all modes of celebrations.
All right, well, now let's change track for a little bit because you've been through what I often term a roller coaster ride in life. Right, I can relate to that.
Right.
But let's get back to you, and I believe that your external passion outside of work is horses. So
yeah.
Can you give it, other than falling off them, can you...
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not particularly good at it, but I've always loved it, and I don't know why. I remember on the junior school oval at Sacred Heart when I was, I guess, about 5 or 6, I was always the horse on all fours, and the other girls would ride me. I was always a bit bigger than the average, so I'd be the horse. And I just was obsessed with them, and I don't know where it come from because Mum and Dad certainly are not, and my 7 sisters never particularly, I mean, a couple of them rode on occasion, but were never particularly serious about it. I was obsessed, and my whole world was to be with a horse. And I badgered Dad relentlessly, and he told me by the time I was 14 that he'd consider it, and I kept going, and a guy he worked for actually bred horses. So just before my 12th birthday, I got a beautiful little chestnut horse that was far too much for me to handle. I couldn't ride him for 6 months. I had to just look at him while another girl rode him. But over that time, he sort of matured a little bit. He was quite young, and I got better at it, and we come together, and he was just fantastic, best horse for me to have, and I just loved it. So I am still going. I am too old, and I don't think I've really gotten any better over the years, but I really enjoy it. So yes, that is been
I should
bit
imagine
of a hobby.
it's a great relief from the stress of running a hospitality industry.
It's a step out of everything else. You're away from everything. You're out on your own. We go out in the bush a bit and see a lot of Australian wildlife, and it's just the two of us, or we'll have a couple of mates ride along as well. It's just a really nice space to be in.
Now, like everybody during COVID, you would have suffered the same fate as I forget the date. It was the cancellation of the Grand Prix.
That was it.
Was it?
Yep.
And then
that was the death nail.
Your bookings would have come to a screaming halt.
Yeah, I reckon that cancellation announcement come out at about 11 a.m. on the Friday, and by about 2 p.m. we had wiped off at least a year's worth of work off our books. It was just cancel. And that was a really hard time. I very naively, when I spoke to the staff, when we sort of come in and said, well, look, we're heading into really uncharted waters. I don't know what's going, but we're fine for the next 3 months. I can probably get us through the next 6, but, it's not going to go that long. So we're thinking we're okay. Anyhow, we didn't know what was ahead, and it was certainly a whole new experience for everybody. And for the girls in sales who are very focused on, filling up the diary, then to work really hard to empty it, that was really hard on them. It was a tough time in that respect. But everybody worked well together. They all understood it's just what it is, and on we went.
Yes, and we get to where we are today, of course, and the biggest issue post-COVID, and you're back up and running in full force.
Yeah.
The biggest issue is around staff, and we keep hearing that all the time. But what do you see in the next 12 months as far as running a large hospitality business in a large regional town? What do you think your issues are going to be over the next 6 to 12 months?
Look, I don't want to be doom and gloom, and I don't think it necessarily will be, but I do think there's some pain to come as, we're watching interest rates go up and so forth. I guess for me, I'm thinking the younger staff, and maybe it's because they've been at home for 2 years, not necessarily working so much or whatever else, there seems to be a loss of resilience in our young staff now as to what we were used to. So they don't cope as well with a workload or the expectations of being employed and, achieving the end result. So I'm worried about how that's going to go. But also we've all had to really rethink our business and change the business we go after or how we do it, whatever it needs to be, but also the systems with which we execute our business. And most businesses have got a lot better at running on less staff. Hospitality probably not as much as a lot of the others, but we're learning to work with less staff. And I think at some point people are going to need to start working again. At some point they're going to be wanting jobs again, and I don't know that there's going to be as many out there, and that concerns me. I think there'll be a glut the other way.
Are you looking for people now? Are you still?
Yes, yeah. I am looking for people now, but we still have to be selective, because if we get the wrong fit, I'll upset the ones I've got, and we've got a really good team. It's been a bit of pain, but we've had to virtually build a whole new team and work through that. But we now have a really good, solid team that support each other and work really well. So anyone we get, we have to make sure is going to fit well with them.
And that culture is really important.
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
really important, and it's good at the moment. We don't want to lose that.
And are you seeing the wedding market increasing? There were lots of cancelled weddings.
There were lots of cancelled weddings, and then there was a lot of weddings come in very different forms. We did lots of smaller weddings than we'd normally do, but they just wanted to get married, so we were doing them all through the week and all over the weekends and different times. I'd say we've probably caught up on that wave of huge disappointment of having their weddings cancelled 2 or 3 times. So I think most of the people who wanted to get married through COVID have achieved that now, but there's still lots of others now. They're all back out and ready to get married again and do whatever. So weddings are still very popular.
And I've been to numerous functions at the Pier, and you all do it very, very well. The food's always very good. It comes out on time.
Yeah, we do have a good kitchen, yes.
The staff are always friendly and helpful. But I've got to ask you, what's the strangest thing you've been asked for a wedding? Have you had something that you've gone, that's different?
Gosh, I should have had one of the girls in here who worked them more than me to answer that. We've done some strange stuff and some weird things have happened.
I suppose where I'm coming from is you're incredibly flexible there with the space and how you accommodate requests and so on. So I just wondered if there was anything.
We've had them before without tables and chairs and all sitting on mats on the floor. If that's what they want to do, that's fine. That was different. I suppose it's not so strange, but some of them you think, oh, it's probably not how I'd do it. But where you've got a couple where the families aren't to mix, because they don't very well. So,
Oh, funny. Families are families.
Well, and the good bottles go on this side of the room and the cheap bottles go on that side. And sometimes you sort of think, oh, okay, it's a hard way to start. We've had to, I threw a groom out once. And we've had a father of the groom have to leave before the wedding even started. At least my groom had got through most of it, but he'd partied a bit too hard. And I'm like, no, he's got to go. Bride didn't mind. She danced on all night without him, so that was good. But he couldn't stand up. He had to go. So, things happen that you just don't can't predict. We lost a wedding ring once coming in. They wanted to come in from underneath, which was really nice, special entry. And the little page boy was fiddling with the ribbon that tied the rings up as he was standing below on the deck, and they both fell off. We got the groom's ring, but the bride's wedding ring just was gone. And one of the staff saying, I can go home and get my scuba gear and dive in, but you can't. I said, you don't know where it's going to land, and it's all sort of silt down there. You'll never find it. So no, it's gone. It wasn't the engagement ring. It was just the wedding band. So the show went on.
Gillian, given all your experience and the way you've handled all your changes going through your business life, what advice have you got for a young lady finishing year 12? What's it called these days?
Yeah, year 12.
I'm showing my age.
You're right, year 12.
And they have no interest in going any further with their studies, and that's not the be-all and end-all in my book. What advice would you give a 17, 18-year-old young lady coming out of school and how she should view probably her entry into business or her entry into the working life?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. If I was to talk to somebody raw, lady or gent, really my message would be much the same. Patience and attitude. Hardship is actually good. Sometimes you cop a rotten boss, you cop a rotten deal. That actually is good. Learn to embrace that, because that's where you do your most growth. They come out now and think in 2 years I should be the CEO. So that's where I say patience. There's so much to learn. And the more experience you get in all the underlying areas, the better you are when you get to the top, because you understand what it looks like. You learn to cherish the hardships. You got to work through them, and they're tough, but that's what gives you the resilience and the know-how as to get through big situations when they occur. So, I've come up in an era where we didn't have all the equality and all that sort of stuff, and I grew up very much in a male-dominated field. And, gee, if I wanted to sit there and say, well, that wasn't fair and that wasn't fair and how dare they, and, I should go back. Well, all of that was what enabled me to get into these situations and say, okay, we have to make this work. And I learned how to make things work because nobody was going to help me. So you got to figure it out. And if I hadn't had that experience that in today's world would be considered grossly unfair, then I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. So, that's an attitude thing where you got to think, well, sometimes things don't appear fair, but you got to have faith and trust that it makes you better for it.
Okay, following on from that, and remember, I guess your staff might be listening to this.
They may be, yes.
I'm going to ask you
Go for it.
Final question. What do you like as a leader? And if I interviewed your staff, what sort of answer do you think I'd get?
You're going to get two very different answers, and that, I'll be quite honest, is going to depend entirely on the competence of the staff. We do run a venue that has really high expenses, so I do push them. The good staff love it, and we work really well together. And I've worked with some great people who are very flattering and thank me, and we maintain a great relationship for years to come. Post them being with me and whatever. I've got people from every organisation I've been in. I always have a gem from there that we always maintain a good relationship. There'll be some who'll tell you that I'm a horrible boss, but they're the ones that either were in positions that they just weren't able to do or they didn't want to move. And we just don't have the luxury to tolerate that. So, yeah, they would find me very hard and mean.
But that's a fair comment, because the outcome from anything you do there is all about your client.
Yeah.
And your client's got to walk away from there thinking, gee, that was good.
Well, it's about my client, but it's also about the rest of my team.
Yeah.
And if I carry team along who are not looking after the whole organisation, I do that at the expense of the organisation. So then all the good ones that are putting in all the effort they're going to likely lose their job as well. So we don't have a choice but to have a standard that must be achieved.
Yeah. And the others that are meeting that standard will not like you if you allow the poor standard to continue.
Yeah, well, I think they enjoy working with me because they really grow and develop. because opportunity is there, they're supported, and they're given what they need to thrive,
fantastic.
and they do. And that does leave the others behind, and it exposes others as well. So you're going to get, depending who you ask, you'll get two very different answers.
Oh, that's and I would expect that.
Yeah, well, I'm confident you'd get that.
Great response. So, Gillian, how do people get in contact with you if they want to book the pier or go to the bar? Or
I would hope it would be very easy. We're on, the socials on Facebook and Instagram, where they've got websites for each of them, and all of those have contacts. Contact us, email in the inquiries line. So we should be very easy to get that way. We do have the phone line still, but we don't use that near so much. Most of it comes now through emails off the website or through however they message on the Facebook and Instagram. They send messages that way.
And the website for the pier is www.thepier?
The Pier Geelong, or we're wabar.com.au or wawag. And that wawag will take you straight to the booking for the restaurant.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, Gillian, been a pleasure chatting to you. We should touch on the fact that Gillian and I both ran tables, or business ran tables, for the Geelong Chamber of Commerce, and that worked really well. We managed to meld a couple, and when you had your unfortunate horse accident, I think I filled in for you for one.
Thank you. Yes, that was exactly a year ago, so thank you for that.
But and I know both groups got a lot out of having us sort of sitting there helping chat to them. So
it was great to meet them, because there's some really
great
terrific businesses out there and people doing amazing things with them. So it's always fun to, see their stories and get some insights.
Well, you might see a Lazarus there. Mark and I are determined to have that format rise again from the ashes.
Try and get it to start. So, Gillian, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.
And Bill, I think we've got another couple we have to record later today, but today's been fascinating. So, Gillian, thank you very much.
No, thanks for having me.